Hi everyone, Granny here, and welcome to my channel. So one of the reasons why I covered the crypto space is the sheer excitement of constant volatility. Not only do we have to deal with the constant price fluctuations of its native tokens, NFTs, etc., momentum can shift at a whim. You can have a gaming project that's doing very well, suddenly it gets hacked. You get a project that has been hiding in the shadows until a celebrity calls on it, and suddenly the project booms. And unfortunately, you can also have projects that appear to be successful, but when you look under the hood, the game's fundamentals have been bleeding profusely, making most of its community leave the project. And while it appears that the game is still doing well, it is actually slowly dying off. I, unfortunately, am talking about Thetan Arena here. Before Thetan Arena first launched back in late 2021, I was very bullish on the project because of its potential to really dominate the MOBA space. But today, I do have to admit that I'm wrong, and upon further investigation of why Thetan Arena is slowly dying, what stood out was a fundamental problem that Thetan Arena has, which can be easily fixed, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like that they're gonna do it. So today, we're gonna dive into Thetan Arena's fundamental problem, what are some of the solutions that they can do to fix it, so that moving forward, Thetan Arena can still have a chance to be one of the premier blockchain games out there. And let's dive in. So I was just happily minding my own business, just checking the stats some of the games that we cover have, randomly browsing until I came across this page for Thetan Arena. This is the Thetan Arena dashboard for its THG staking, and if you notice right here, out of 145 million THG in circulation, only 1.8 million THG have been staked, amounting to around less than 2%. This was the start of my investigation for Thetan Arena, because the THG is so little that it is a very powerful indication that the community has left the game and really has no faith in the project. As a good comparison for THG, one of the best crypto games out there that has very healthy staking is if you look at Splinterlands. Half of the Splinterlands SPS supply is currently staked in the game itself. When you look at Axie Infinity's staking, AXS has a circulating supply of around 60 million AXS. 25 million of that has been staked. That is after the Ronin hack. So the fact that you only have 2% staked for THG really is quite alarming. So what I did over the past couple of days is I started to investigate what could be the potential problem of Thetan Arena. So I'm not going to go into details as to the game developers and how they treated the community or how the community has treated the developers, because there's a lot of subjectivity out there. Instead, what I want to talk about here is Thetan Arena's problem is actually a fundamental one. The way they have designed the hero economics is actually what's causing Thetan Arena to fail. This is the fundamental problem of Thetan Arena. Heroes have a limit as to how many battles they can participate to earn that particular gaming currency. And the best way to illustrate what the problem is with this system is to talk about another game that is not even a play-to-earn game. So we're going to talk about Breath of the Wild. So Breath of the Wild was one of the best modern games out there, but it had a mechanic that was very painful for its player base. The weapon durability. So when you start playing Breath of the Wild, you're going to start to acquire weapons, but given that you are still low level and given that the areas tend to be easier, Breath of the Wild's weapons are incredibly brittle. Only after a few hits on the enemies, they start to break. Now, if you ask Nintendo, for example, they do have good intentions as to why this is the case. They want you to experiment on playing with new weapons so that you don't just get stuck with one. It allows for a lot of experimentation. It allows for more diverse combat tactics because you are now forced to use a lot of weapons given that they break. So while in theory, this is well and good, the problem with this mechanic is it teaches players negative reinforcement. You have a situation where they are constantly thinking about whether or not a weapon is worth using, because if they make a mistake or if they feel that they took too much time to defeat a particular enemy, then the weapon durability of the weapon that they want to use gets severely limited and eventually it breaks. So while the mechanic ideally is supposed to teach experimentation, what happened with the player base was they became more conservative with the weapons that they use for fear of wasting its durability on mobs that don't deserve to be killed by that particular weapon. So near the end of the game, eventually a Breath of the Wild player would keep finding weapons that are high level that don't break easily. But the problem is at that point, the game has already taught them so much negative reinforcement that it's either they don't use the powerful weapons anymore, or even worse, players are actually skipping battles, trying to avoid as much enemies as they can so that they don't waste weapon durability, even though at the end of the game, a lot of their weapons are actually lasting longer than they think it will. So going back to Thetan Arena, that is actually the key problem of this particular economic structure. The GTHC battles that each hero has is capped. The intention of Thetan Arena here was it's supposed to promote hero burning, for example, so that you don't just keep using heroes, therefore inflating the hero supply indefinitely, kind of like what Axie is right now, where you have millions upon millions of Axies being bred with no burning mechanisms for said Axies, unless they voluntarily burn those Axies. So while the initial idea is supposed to be good, the key mistake that the Thetan Arena did was win or lose, your meter ticks up. That means if you bought an expensive hero, for example, for $200 with a battle cap of around $850 and you lost all of those battles, you had no way of recouping that money back. And the problem of this negative reinforcement is threefold. The first one is it puts undue pressure now on the player to perform really, really well because a loss is double penalized. Not only did you lose the match, you have lost one more potential count of you earning for that particular hero. The second one is because of this system, with the players constantly having to juggle the risk and rewards of playing legendary heroes or higher level heroes, you end up with a lot of players going back to the most basic and weakest heroes, trying to sieve out as much value as they can, thereby reducing the value of a legendary hero in the first place. It also cascades to the rental market as well. Why would you rent a powerful hero for a huge sum of money when you still have to deal with winning these matches in order to recoup those funds back in order for you to reinvest in the game? So this is an example as to why negative reinforcement is never a good idea when it comes to game design. Instead of making players face their fears, what tends to happen is the majority of your player base become actually more conservative instead of experimental, and with play to earn elements here, you are adding additional pressure of performance where they really have to do very well, else they are not able to recoup their investments back. So now that we've identified what the fundamental issue is, what can Thetan Arena do about it? There's actually a very simple solution to this. You can keep the hero battle cap, but change it into positive reinforcement instead. If let's say you have Shanna here, and her 853 battle cap is based on the total amount of games that this player wins instead of wins and loses, you're actually encouraging the player base to try out legendary heroes and other heroes a lot more. If you change it into a positive reinforcement system, what you will see is the whole marketplace will thrive. Players will not mind owning a lot more heroes, so it allows people to have more fun because now you have heroes that they can experiment with without any punishment when they lose. You're also going to inject new life in the rental marketplace because if it is based on the number of wins, even though the hero is about to be consumed, you still have that much amount of wins that they can earn before the hero is set to retire. Other than the fundamental issue, there are other simple things that Thetan Arena can do to improve its trust within its community. The first one, of course, is stop lying to the public. The 23 million total players here, for example, is actually very misleading because this gives the impression that there are 23 million active players in Thetan Arena, but we know that is not true. In fact, a very simple check in DAP Radar, you can see here that, for example, over the past 30 days, Thetan Arena users number at around 9.6 thousand. And we actually know the player base here, how many players play the game at a daily basis as well via DAP Radar. Now, I understand that DAP Radar is not the most accurate measurement because sometimes it's a lagging indicator. There are some problems with how they measure it. But this is a more transparent number as compared to this number right here because we know that this is not even true at the slightest, whereas this one is a more accurate representation regardless of whether the margin of error is plus minus 10,000, it doesn't matter. Being more transparent with your game statistics actually encourages the community to participate more in improving the statistics for the game. The best example I can think of is once again Splinterlands. In Splinterlands, the community have actually built dashboards because they can sieve out data from the blockchain, informing the Splinterlands community on the statistics for the game. You have the number of daily active players, for example. You have the number of new players versus the number of players who bought spell books. You have the market caps, you have the token prices, etc., etc. This level of honesty and transparency is the reason why 50% of SPS is actually staked. Because as much as the community likes to complain about Splinterlands, at the end of the day, openness and transparency are always welcomed by the community. Let the community help you think of ways to really make the game popular instead of alienating the community and having bots in Discord groups constantly flood the chat with being nice with language. Because the last thing that a community needs for a decentralized game, supposedly, is for you to start controlling the flow of information for that particular game.